Have you ever considered how much energy it takes to ask a computer a simple question? Imagine walking into a giant football stadium at night and turning on every single light just to find a set of keys you dropped on the grass. Most of us do something very similar every single day without even realizing it. We open a chat window and ask a massive artificial intelligence what we should cook for dinner or to tell us a silly joke. To give us that simple answer, a huge network of computers in a faraway data center starts buzzing and drinking up electricity like a small city. We are using a massive amount of power for very small tasks. It is like using a rocket ship just to drive down the street to buy a loaf of bread. This way of using technology is starting to cost our planet more than we can afford. We are at a point where we need to stop and ask if there is a better way to build our digital future. Right now, the story of artificial intelligence is being written by just a few very large companies. They build models that are so big they require specialized hardware and endless rows of cooling fans. This is the surface level of how we understand AI today. We see it as a giant brain in the sky that knows everything but requires a mountain of energy to stay awake. We have become used to the idea that bigger is always better. We think that for a computer to be smart it must be huge. We believe that more data and more power are the only ways to reach a better future. But this is a very expensive way to think. It assumes that we must always take from the planet to gain knowledge. We are using these giant models for tasks that do not actually need that much power. It is a mismatch between the tool and the job. Underneath this surface there is a hidden assumption that we often ignore. We assume that the future of technology is already decided and that we are just passengers along for the ride. We believe that we must follow the path set by big tech companies because they have the most money and the most computers. We assume that if we want to use AI we have to accept the environmental cost as a necessary evil. But this is not true. We forget that we have the power to change how these tools are built and used. We assume that intelligence must be centralized in giant data centers. This way of thinking keeps the power in the hands of a few people and takes it away from the users and the regulators. We have accepted a pattern where technology is a drain on our resources instead of a partner in protecting them. If we look closely at the structural pattern of how we use energy, we see a cycle of waste. We build tools that are too large for their purpose and then we have to build even more power plants to keep them running. This pattern is not sustainable for a world that is already struggling with climate change. We see this same pattern in many parts of our lives where we choose the most complicated solution instead of the most efficient one. But there is a different way to organize our digital world. We can choose a pattern of small but mighty tools. Think about the difference between a giant bus and a bicycle. A bus is great for moving 60 people, but if you are just one person going to the park, a bicycle is much more efficient. We need to start building the digital equivalent of bicycles. We need models that are designed for specific tasks like mapping crops or detecting floods. These models do not need to know every joke in the world or how to write a poem. They just need to be excellent at the one job they were built to do. This allows them to run on much smaller hardware like the phone in your pocket instead of a massive warehouse of servers. When we change the scale of the technology, we change who can use it and how much it costs the Earth. This allows us to reframe our entire perspective on artificial intelligence. Instead of seeing it as a thirsty giant, we can see it as a helpful scout. We can imagine a future where AI gives back to the planet instead of just taking away. Imagine a world where your local farmer uses a small AI on a tablet to know exactly how much water each plant needs. Imagine a city using a tiny model to fix traffic lights in real time so cars do not waste fuel idling in line. This is a future where AI is a tool for sustainability rather than a cause of pollution. We can take back the wheel and drive toward a version of technology that serves all of humanity. This means putting the power back into the hands of developers who care about the environment and regulators who can set better rules for energy use. We do not have to wait for big companies to change their ways. We can start asking for and building tools that are efficient by design. This is not just a dream for scientists. It is something that applies to our daily lives right now. Every time you choose a simpler tool or think about the energy behind your digital habits, you are helping to shape this new future. We can be more mindful about when we really need a giant model and when a simple search or a small app will do. We can support researchers who are finding ways to do more with less. Think about how we have learned to save water or turn off the lights in our homes. We can learn to do the same with our data and our digital lives. We can look for technology that is transparent about its energy use. By being curious and asking questions, we signal to the world that we value the health of the planet as much as we value the speed of our computers. This shift in thinking is how we move from being passive users to active creators of a better world. We are currently at a crossroads in the history of technology. We can continue to build bigger and hungrier machines, or we can choose to be smarter about how we use our intelligence. The lessons of the past tell us that the most successful inventions are often the ones that become smaller and more integrated into our lives without being a burden. We have seen this with the evolution of the telephone and the personal computer. Now we must do it with artificial intelligence. We have the creativity and the skill to build a future that is both high-tech and low-impact. It starts with the realization that we do not need to turn on all the lights in the stadium just to find our keys. We just need a small flashlight that works perfectly. This transition will take time and effort, but the reward is a planet that can thrive alongside our most advanced inventions. We can build a world where technology acts as a shield for nature rather than a threat to it. We have the opportunity to redesign our relationship with energy and information from the ground up. This is a chance to prove that human ingenuity is not about how much we can consume, but about how wisely we can use what we have. If we all decided to value the energy efficiency of our digital tools as much as their speed, how different would the world look in just 5 years?